Good evening and welcome to the study meeting of Livonia City Council. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Honorable Councilwoman Carrie Budzinski.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to jump right to council for any council announcements, if anybody has any.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. President. I just wanted to welcome our new council member, Linda Shield. Welcome. I had the pleasure of serving with Councilman Jim Jolly, and the council president and I have served with a lot of different people over the years. So it was nice to see Judge Jolly win and go on to serve as our judge. And now it's nice to welcome Councilwoman Shield here and wish you luck. And yeah, let's have a good year. 2025, it's our first meeting. So looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Anything else? Yes.
I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you for your support, for those who voted for me, and for everybody on council. I look forward to a strong year together. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? I'm going to go to the audience for audience communication for items that are not on the agenda. Please make your way to the podium. 3 minutes, name and address.
Cindy Fleming, Livonia, on behalf of Save Alfred Noble, the nonprofit that was formed to save the former library on Plymouth Road. I just wanted to also speak to you about the Sheldon Park proposal plan that was in the committee of Parks and Recs Committee. It was kind of a surprise to see this plan, considering that over, I would say, about 60 residents gathered at the committee of the whole meeting to talk about Noble and Sheldon Park, and none of them were asked or told that this plan was in the works. In fact, all of the residents have been saying, how come Sheldon doesn't have a new blue sign like all the other parks? Like, it's still raising alarm in the public. So there's supposedly a plan, and I followed the link and put in a bunch of suggestions because I can see some things that could definitely be revised before anything's looked at. I know this isn't for the 2025 budget, but I would just like to say, I would ask actually council to ask Parks and Rec to ask our citizens to participate in a plan for this park, because it is a high stakes thing. It's the largest park on the south side of Livonia, who, again, using the words of the former councilman, now Judge Jim Jolly, there is a breach of trust and a lack of trust that is growing between the city and a lot of the citizens, in particular the south side citizens. So I'm asking that you as council, talk to the director of Parks and Rec, and maybe we can get some nice collaboration going and have that trust restored. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi there. Laura Jonica, 29635 Munger in Livonia. I'm going to piggyback on what Cindy started over there. I was at the meeting with the Parks and Rec. I couldn't see the plans because I wasn't offered the plans. I heard about them. It seemed like a shock to everybody on the committee what was on those plans, the drawings. It seemed like, to me, they didn't even know what was going on, but they voted yes. And then when somebody said, do we have any money for that? And they said, no, we'll be asking Plymouth Road Authority for that. And like Cindy said, this community uses those parks for very specific things. I work out there 2 days a week. I see that park. I go by there all the time. I see kids playing there. There's little soccer teams. I didn't see any place for little soccer players there. That seems like that's gone. Then you have a baseball diamond with dugouts. I don't think that's necessary for that park. I think it's more amenable to the smaller children rather than something with dugouts. So, like Cindy said, I think asking the community and having the community be a part. Even when I was at the meeting, I didn't feel like I wasn't even allowed to ask a question at the end. I was told I could not ask a question. So I think my goal for Livonia is to be more open, more honest, and communicative in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for audience communication? Seeing none? I just would like to point out before I jump right into the agenda that we will be removing items 7, 8, 7, 8, 9 off this meeting. It's been tabled per the recommendation of the administration, and it will be jumping back at some time in the future. With that being said, I'm going to jump right into new business. Item number 1 is a request for council approval on a proposed lot split. This comes to us from the Department of Assessment for the property located in the south of 8 Mile and east of Merriman in the northwest quarter section 2, 19902 Merriman Court, to waive the required 50-foot wide dedicated public right-of-way to a 30 feet wide right-of-way for vehicular. Listen, I'm missing in my feelings again from a hockey incident, so if I'm like whistling and stuff, you guys can purely make fun of me. That's totally good. For proposed parcels A and B. Is this, Mr. Tormina, is this yours?
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, this is a lot split request. This property is located at the north end of Merriman Court. Actually has partial frontage on a street called Pembroke. Pembroke in this area is a 30-foot wide public right-of-way that borders the west side of the property. The site is zoned RUF, Rural Urban Farm. Pembroke, as you can see, really functions as nothing more than a turnaround at the north end of Merriman Court. The property measures 163 feet by 266 feet, total area roughly 43,568 square feet. So it's an acre. The survey proposed shows 2 parcels, parcels A and B, each of which would measure 81 feet, 7 inches by 266 feet for 21,784 square feet, or just under half an acre. So both properties do meet the minimum lot size requirement of the RUF district. The survey shows that there would be a 30-foot wide easement that would extend across the width of parcel A, and that would provide ingress, egress, and utilities to both properties. So just to, and I know this is difficult to see, but this is the parcel highlighted in red. Parcel A is on the left side of the drawing, parcel B on the right side. This easement would be extended from the east end of Pembroke, where it currently terminates along the west side of parcel A, would extend across parcel A, providing access and utilities to parcel A, as well as providing access and utilities to parcel B. This is Chapter 16 of the Code of Ordinances stipulates that vehicular access must be from a dedicated public right-of-way at least 50 feet wide. So the 30-foot easement does not comply with this requirement and could be replaced with a dedicated public right-of-way. We've shown what that might look like should optionally you choose to direct the petitioner to provide a 50-foot wide public right-of-way. I will point out, and this plan illustrates this, the property immediately to the east is somewhat landlocked. It is owned in common, and I show where that common ownership exists with this property here at the north end of Merriman Court. So providing additional extension of this right-of-way could have the effect of providing access to the undeveloped portion of this adjacent parcel, unless the council chooses to limit the extension of the right-of-way or the easement to only parcel B. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. Council? We do have the petitioners here. Would you just mind saying name and address for just for the record, and if council has any questions, we can refer?
Mike Adams. I'm actually 19833 Merriman Court, so I'm basically kitty corner.
Okay.
So I built that 8 years ago.
Nice.
So
Perfect.
just trying to get some new neighbors.
Sounds good. And you?
Vince Longo, I'm currently in South Lyon.
Perfect, thank you. Let me go to Councilwoman Toy, then Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, if I may, to the petitioner.
You may.
Sir, you live in that area currently then?
Yes, yep. Kitty corner from that lot.
On the
Merriman,
west side,
west.
the last house on the west side.
Yep.
Okay, and you're the one petitioning for this split?
Yes. yep,
Okay.
Yep, I'm
And
gonna,
what type of homes did you want to put in there?
we have do you have a picture of them? I mean, they're gonna be
I don't have them
4-bedroom,
yet.
4-bedroom
Yeah,
brick?
modern
Mostly brick?
colonial, mostly brick.
mostly brick, yep, LP siding, yep.
Yeah, what price range would you guess?
500 to 600 probably. I mean, they actually just sold the two next door to this property for, 450, so,
That's what they're going for in there.
yep.
They did sell, yeah. They
Yeah.
they recently sold.
She's looking for a new house.
No, I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
No, I'm
yeah.
not. Seriously, I'm not.
Yeah.
Didn't Solvay put?
He's around a lot, so that's
Yeah.
why, I mean, it came up.
Didn't he put something in there at one time? No? Near Pembroke? Because that street doesn't.
Well, the end,
I
Yeah.
thought it was the corner.
Is
yeah,
that
it's the
where it
corner
is?
te-
Yeah, I remember
7.
this from a long time ago.
yeah, that
Okay.
came up for sale. I mean, he was probably gonna buy it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I bought it before he did, because I'd rather have me build the houses than him come in and build the
Yeah,
houses.
right.
So,
Sure.
I gotta live there, so,
For sure. Yeah, so this, if I made our city planner, this kind of coincides with what's already there, right, Mark? I mean, for the most part?
Yeah, I
Are
think,
we all right?
I think this aerial and map shows really that the lots would generally be consistent with the adjacent properties, especially the ones immediately to the west. I think what is unique about this is the access.
Sure.
And how that's being provided to the two new building sites, and whether or not, this should be in the form of an easement or a public right-of-way. So
Yeah,
with
pretty
that,
much.
that's something that probably should be
Discussed there.
discussed with the engineering, what their preference is. I know that they submitted a report to council as well.
I'm going to offer an approving, but I'm also going to involve my colleague, Mr. Rob, as well on this. He's got an idea for some access.
All right.
I mean, he's got to be called on by the president. I
I'm
don't mean
excited
take
to,
your role
like-
here, but yeah. yeah.
I kind of want to learn more on why you don't want him to build the house, but that's
Solvay?
Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for being here tonight. A couple questions for you tonight. Who owns the adjacent parcel to the east then? Is that you guys or someone else owns that?
That blue?
The blue box.
Actually, the homeowner that you also have highlighted in blue.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to the south.
So,
That's one big parcel. Is it-
yeah, I've talked to him, new owners, actually both the property owners next door to this property both sold as soon as I bought it.
Yeah.
So, but the new owners actually want to sell us that, but I told them I can't buy everything right now.
Sure.
So it,
Okay.
it might continue.
Okay, and then for the right-of-way, what are you currently proposing for that right-of-way or easement? Is it paved? Is it stone? What would that
It
look
could
like?
be gravel or blacktop.
In talking to the engineers, they said it could be gravel.
Gravel, yeah,
That's what you're proposing?
Or
Okay.
black,
Or
but we're
blacktop.
thinking more blacktop.
yeah.
Okay, more blacktop.
To match the
okay.
street, yeah.
And then are there utilities? I know reading the letter talked about utilities. Can you go on the record? Where are the utilities at right now on the site?
So there's, we have sewer, but water, everybody's got to be put over there. We actually put a fire hydrant from my front yard over there, which is going to be a big expense.
So you guys
but-
do have to run sewer and water east, essentially,
Yes.
to access both sites?
Yeah.
Would you be proposing to do that in this 30-foot right-of-way, underneath, south of it, north of it?
It's underneath. The fire hydrant would be in the front yard of one of those properties.
Right, so it would be on the north side of that 30-foot easement in the front yard.
Okay. And then why not 50? I know it talks a little bit about in the letter why you can't do 50 as opposed to 30.
We
What's
don't
your?
want it to be a road. I mean, it's an access to two houses. We don't
So you're
need,
thinking more of a tranquil entrance that goes
Private
into these.
driveway.
it's a
homes.
private driveway
Yeah.
for two residents. We don't want it.
And that leads me to my next question, and maybe this is either for you guys as the developers or to our planning department. Is this, I want to protect, I'm generally supportive. I see what you guys want to do. I think this would be a great little neighborhood, two beautiful homes back there tucked away. If I was envisioning, you're going to limit tree removal, that sells to the product,
Yeah.
it's it's a peaceful, private little area with a private drive. So I see what you both want to do.
Yeah.
My question is just logistics moving forward, because I don't want to create a landlocked adjacent property. So to Mr. Tormino or to Law, what's the best thing for our future? Assuming council is generally supportive of this votes, is it some sort of shared access agreement? Is it a public right of way? I want to make sure if I'm voting, being supportive of this right now, that we give options to the adjacent. You may not own it, you may sell it to somebody. How do we make sure we protect that area to give them some access?
If I may speak to that, Mr. Termino?
He's passing it off to the engineer.
Obviously, we want to maintain emergency services, utilities, and be able to plow that street. You need a 50-foot right-of-way for those both parcels to maintain that. And if you want to extend it in the future, if you talked about being landlocked, definitely, again, going down there right now, it's very difficult, I think, as it is, with the way it's configured to do maintenance of the snow plowing and for emergency vehicles. The best suit for these two locations would be a 50-foot right-of-way dedicated to the city, pave it asphalt or concrete, and then you can extend it in the future if needed be, or again, to have the ability to have garbage trucks turn around, because it's a long stretch, and for emergency vehicles to make sure that they get access in case something does happen back there for residents.
One second, to maybe again, Mr. Tormina, or to the city engineer, is there a mechanism, and I'm thinking through this in the moment, that I don't want to say forfeit their rights, but they'd have to, per this agreement, they know they're not going to get this plowed, they know that public provided trash removal is not going to drive down this road. They have to take their carts to the end of it. I mean, because you guys got to understand, I understand the engineer. We got to make sure there's access to emergency vehicles and to publicly available trash collection. But is there some maneuver here, provide them relief, but also protect our interests as a city?
Yeah, there are very few instances where we allow private easements to serve as access to residential development. There are a couple instances, but they're few and far between. So really, for public health safety reasons, it's the reason why these dedicated right-of-ways are really the primary means of providing access to residential structures. Could it be limited to 30 feet? It gets tight. I mean, you have to provide public utility service to these. City's going to have to go in there and maintain those potentially at some point in time. So that raises a question. So there may be additional easements that are needed for construction purposes and for maintenance purposes. And then there's the adjacent parcel to the east. What happens there? Should our decision this evening or with this project limit the ability for future development of that parcel to the east? So that's why we're bringing this to your consideration. We believe that the 50-foot right-of-way is the proper course of action here.
My last question, what happened if it was 40? Because these are deep lots, they're 266 feet deep. I mean, does 40 cut it for these guys? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
I mean, that's wider than what's there now. I mean, Pembroke's not even 50 feet. You can see on that 50 feet is wider than what Pembroke is.
The existing Pembroke
The existing
right now.
Pembroke is, it's crazy.
To the chair, obviously we want to see what the utilities are going to be. How is he getting sewer, how he's getting water. There's 10-foot standards, 10-foot horizontally away from each sewer and the water main. How is it going to play out as far as utilities? And then obviously be able to turn around and maintain that itself. So it all depends on how the utilities are going to be laid out and based on the layout of the houses too.
If I could point something out as well, just remember that the 50-foot right-of-way in this instance would not prevent the development of either parcel A or parcel B. They still have the adequate lot area and width to be legal building sites. The right-of-way is not an indication either necessarily of the pavement width. Those standards will be developed with the engineering department. It's really the additional space that's required to service the utilities and to provide adequate turnaround for maintenance and emergency vehicles. Remember, we still have to get garbage trucks in there. You may have to get a fire truck back there. There's all these considerations.
And I'm sorry, Mr. President. So for example, the road will be 30 feet wide maybe, or 28 feet wide, the actual road, correct? Give or take right around there?
That's, again, up to the engineering department. They have a separate set of standards that could apply here. for such a limited access point, whether it could be 26 feet or 28 feet. I really don't know the answer to that.
And could we limit tree removal for maybe they don't want to take down trees in the right of way, maybe they don't want to do a sidewalk, you can get a sidewalk waiver.
Yeah, there's no sidewalk at all in Merriman Court.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Because you would come back, the petition would come back to the city council for a sidewalk waiver. So maybe, again, either the right of way is an imaginary line where the road, maybe we can give them some relief where the road doesn't have to be 30 feet, maybe it's 26 feet. I'm just trying to work. We need more
Yeah.
housing in our community.
If we
But
do
also want,
50
one second, sir.
Sorry.
We also need to protect our interests for the city, and I get that, but I want to help these guys, and we need more housing in our community. So that's just kind of my commentary.
Do you mind if I just quickly throw in one thing and then I'll jump it to you? But having worked with easements and some of our friends at DT and consumers and Wayne County or vice versa, in the event that this goes through, if DT doesn't grant an easement, then that's shut down, correct?
Yeah, we got to figure out what, they got to be able to supply the electricity there. Again, unless they're doing solar or something else we don't know about.
No, I'm just saying in general, obviously with any utilities or easements, if something's not compatible, that could make you're going to have to potentially deal with that down the line during the site plan process. So just to let council know, we could say, hey, the utilities, but listen, consumers, DT, our water department, even public safety, they're going to review this. And if something doesn't correlate, you guys do know it's out of our hands at that point, right? So before I open this up, I'm going to go to the vice president. I just wanted to clarify, and forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I just wanted to put it out there. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question on this. If we were to approve the 30-foot, we're looking at that adjacent land to the east, there's really no access to get there, is what I'm seeing, like for emergency vehicles or anything. That would be a struggle, right, to get to that eastern property?
That is correct.
Okay, so, and I know the easement doesn't have to all be concrete or blacktop, but would you consider even doing 30 feet of blacktop and maybe some shoulders, for lack of a better word, in gravel or something like that? Could we do?
we could go all the way too.
Right.
I could go put that in front of B so we can future get to.
Yeah, whether it's your property or, sorry, through the
Yeah.
chair to the petitioner, but whether it's, going to be your property or not, we don't know, TBD, right?
Oh yeah,
But-
we could leave that 30 foot across A and B to get to that future.
Because that's my biggest concern is the implications on that other piece of property right there. Not to mention, I don't want to necessarily set a precedence.
Yeah, we could put that road all the way through and then put 2 driveways out.
Okay. Yeah, that was pretty much my biggest question. And Mr. Donovan kind of, I think, took most of the rest, so.
Councilwoman Budzinski?
Yeah, I'd just say personally, I feel most comfortable going with the recommendation of our engineering department on the size of the easement, particularly in the interest of the other resident and what they decide to do with that piece of property in the back, since, it was previously all wooded area, and that at that time could have been their expectation. Now, since it's been developed, if they want that opportunity, I think, we should be mindful of future use.
Well, if I don't mind, add to that current owner that just purchased it offered it to us. So that is their plan, is to hopefully sell it to us.
And then, great, but I have to make decisions on current, what it currently looks like, and if that doesn't happen, whoever.
We would make
that
sure
gets
that road
access
was all the way through to that. The 30 foot would go all the way to that, so you can access it through the private drive. So, do Merriman Court.
Mr. Zelinski?
Just want to make sure, again, if the sewer gets extended down, which it should be to the very end, you have to be able to access and maintain that. Problem is, they say they offer the project or the property to them now, but again, nothing's guaranteed, as we all know, except for death and taxes.
Yep.
And again, why rip up new driveways and people that built brand new houses had to be inconvenienced with now extending
there. Sewer's
extending
on
there.
the road.
Right, but I'm just saying for water and sewer for maintenance. Again, maybe it's not sized enough. We have to take a look at that, whatever. But once the plan's in, we want to do the right thing at the right time. As Council Brzezinski had said, we want to go back and redo things, but again, at the end of the day, 50-foot right-of-way would be ideal. You did it at Emerson Oaks. You see how tight it is. Obviously, the sidewalks probably will be waived. So if there's no sidewalks out there, that gives you a little extra room. But again, the fire, as you said, Council President, fire trucks have to get back there. They're going to look at that. Public safety is going to have have the overall say.
So, and that's a great point. So in the event that that happens, I mean, it's going to be, it's out of council's, it's going to be the plan review process. So just making it clear that, you know, we can approve this, but if it needs a pump station, lift stations, a grinder pump, that's on you.
Yeah, it needs a fire hydrant already. We already know that. That's 20
So-
grand to get a fire hydrant in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
'cause we gotta-
non-sexy addition.
Yeah, that's for the next property too, that fire hydrant.
Yeah.
So they
So
can't.
just so you guys are aware, on the record, that obviously the plan review is probably going to dictate a lot of this.
Yep.
So, right now, we do have a motion for approving, Councilman Toy, was that consent or regular?
Regular.
So we're going to keep that on regular, the December 15th, or January 15th meeting.
Can I ask you a
Yes.
question?
Yep.
And this is to Ms. Toy. I know you put the approval on there for the lot
right
split.
there.
Is this for the 30 or the 50-foot
Oh, yeah, good call.
easement?
Yeah, I didn't specify that.
What are you thinking?
Let's do
Call Mark.
40.
I'm not using that.
No? Can we do 40? Whatever will pass. How's that?
Council's prerogative.
Yeah. You guys fill in the blank. I really, I'm not married to any of them.
Well, you
It's on the
gotta,
regular.
you
Go
gotta
ahead,
waive, you
Vice
gotta
President.
waive,
Sure.
well, no, it says you have to waive the required 50 feet.
Right,
So
right, I know.
are you in your motion making a waiver on the 50 feet or not?
Sure,
I
yes,
guess.
please.
And I mean, just obviously knowing
Yeah.
that we're going to get, the plan review process is going to over.
Right.
Yeah,
I just wanna make
thank
sure
you.
we had.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. So we're going to have the 30-foot approval on regular.
Okay.
So anything further from council?
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm
Yes.
sorry to belabor it. Are we approving, is council voting to approve the waiver and narrow it to 30 feet? Or are we saying would be amenable to 40 feet? I'm okay with 40 feet. There's one council member, if there's a motion to approve and to narrow that down
Right
to
now,
40.
the motion on the motion on the floor is 30, right? So-
Correct. I mean, I could change it to
Yeah.
40 if, you know,
Yeah,
consensus
then-
is. What do you think?
I
He
mean,
wants 40. It's a birthday present to him. Give it to him.
all right, so we're going to go with 40 for the
My
record. I
birthday,
mean,
too.
literally, I'm kind of laughing because the plan review is going to dictate most of this anyway. So 40 feet
Yeah.
on the regular, be here January 15th. It'll be the voting
There you go.
meeting. Appreciate you coming out and hanging out. Anything else, council? Anything from the audience? Okay.
So if it's 40 or 50, could it be gravel still, or is it got to be road?
If it's public road right away, it has to be paved.
Yep.
Asphalt or concrete.
And it's got to be Wayne County specs then.
It doesn't have to be Wayne County specs, it just has to be paved to our standards. Typically 7.5 inches of concrete, 7 inches of concrete on a private road or asphalt, depending on what the soil conditions are. But we can work together on this, that's not a big problem.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Moving on to item number 2 is a waiver petition. Comes to us from the Planning Commission, petition 2024-10-02-16, submitted by Livonia Gas Mart, requesting waiver use approval of all plans in connection with a proposal to redevelop and expand the existing gas station, including removing the service bays, expanding the building to provide additional retail space and restaurant, and relocate and increase the number of fuel pumps and parking. This is located at 31301 Plymouth Road, located in the southeast corner of Plymouth and Merriman Roads. Mr. Termina.
Thank you again. This item involves redeveloping the gas station, which is at the southeast corner of Plymouth and Merriman Roads. A gas station has existed at this site since at least the early 1950s. It operates as both a gas station and an auto repair business with 3 service bays. The proposal would relocate the fuel pumps, eliminate the service bays, and expand the building to provide additional retail space as well as a restaurant. This property measures 175 feet by 175 feet for 30,600 square feet. The existing building is roughly 1,960 square feet, and currently there are 2 groups of gas pumps, one along Plymouth Road and then the other along Merriman Road. The redesign, which is this site plan, includes 1 canopy above a single row of 4 gas pumps extending along Plymouth Road in a dive-in configuration. So this is really the configuration we see at most gas stations these days, and that's a single larger canopy with all of the pumps lined up parallel facing the main road. The north driveway, so there are 4 driveways that provide ingress and egress to this site, 2 on Merriman, 2 on Plymouth Road. The north driveway on Merriman Road would be removed. The store's main entrance would face north on Plymouth Road. The additions would be to the south and the east sides of the building. These additions total 2,600 square feet, so this would increase the overall gross floor area of the building to 4,600 square feet. Parking is shown both on the north and west sides of the building. As required by the Planning Commission, additional parking would be provided along the south side of the property, where there is an existing green area, which would be removed and replaced with 15 parking spaces, as well as the dumpster enclosure. Altogether, there would be 34 striped parking spaces, and this equates to approximately 7.3 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. The convenience store would occupy roughly 2/3 of the floor space in the building, and then the restaurant, which would be located on the east side, measures roughly 1,500 square feet. The restaurant would have a separate entrance, and a user or tenant has not yet been identified. So we really don't know what type of restaurant this would be. We don't know if it's going to have indoor seating or if it's just to carry out. So there's some unknowns relative to not only the use, but also what the parking demand would be for that space. The building's exterior would consist primarily of brick as well as split-face blocks. There'd be a decorative crown molding along the top. A landscape plan was provided with the application. However, it was not developed by a registered landscape architect, which is a requirement of the zoning ordinance. Planning Commission is recommending approval. As I indicated, the main item that they wanted addressed was the additional parking along the south side of the building. We believe while there may be a need for some additional parking, that the 15 additional spaces as shown is probably in excess of what's actually needed for the site.
Thank you, Mr. Tormina. And the petitioner is here to field any questions. I want to start off, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Councilman Donovic, then the Vice President. Have you owned this for a long time?
Well, I'm not the owner. I'm the architect, designer. I'm representing the owner, Dr. Fadi Nasruddin.
The funny is, and I'm not going to, talk for Rob Donovic conversation, but I'm messing. Listen, I love you. But long story short, there used to be a 1989 Ford Ranger that always was on the side of the building with a wooden bumper, and that was my dad's family truck. And I laughed every time I would drive by because it was right there. It was always on the side. So, no, I'm happy. I mean, the plans look good before I open it up. I just figure, I'm missing teeth. Why not tell some other stories? Councilman Donovic.
Thanks, Mr. President. We should try to find that vehicle for you.
I've been trying.
We're going to look for it. Thanks, petitioner, for being here this evening. First, Mr. Tormina, during your remarks, you made a comment about, per our zoning ordinance, we require a registered landscape architect to do the landscape work, and there's not one been provided to the city for that?
No, the plan was submitted, as I indicated, and it is not stamped by well, you know what? I take that back. I'm going to take a look. I know, I just noticed it as I was.
You brought it up, so I wanted to make sure.
No, it's the engineer. So there's a section in the ordinance that requires a landscape architect to prepare landscape plans especially for redevelopment sites like this. And so we would, if nothing else, we would suggest that if the council is willing to move forward on this petition, that the landscaping be brought back to the Planning Commission as a callback item, and that it be done by a landscape architect.
Yeah, I concur. I think we need to hire the professionals, and I'm okay with that. So that'd be a part of any motion that I'd be supporting. Thanks for being here this evening, sir. A few questions. There's a ton of parking here and a ton of asphalt, and I've driven by, and I know there's a large proposed addition to the restaurant, and my colleague and I were talking. It's funny how these gas stations are becoming retrofitted restaurants, and I wonder if cities need to start taking a look at our ordinances when it talks about gas stations, because they're no longer just gas stations. They become large shopping malls and restaurants and all sorts of stuff going on. I'm excited that this project this is an eyesore, this gas station, and I'm excited to see significant amount of money being invested into it. So I'm generally supportive of it, but it is interesting. And I think we as a city should maybe start taking a look at that and how we handle these gas station redevelopments. But anyways, can we remove some of this parking, or is it a requirement we have this many spaces? I know Mr. Tremaine, you mentioned that, removing some of these parking. I would like to see this kind of reworked a little bit, because there's a ton of asphalt here, and I don't necessarily know if we need all that. I don't know if that's a question for the petitioner or the planning director.
Yeah, I will say this, we believe this site is overparked, especially not having all of the information just based on experience. And the majority of these types of corner gas stations, the ones that have some type of food service operation in connection with the convenience store, is usually a carry out only or limited to primarily carry out. So we don't think that we need to apply the parking standards for restaurants to that portion of the building that's being used for food service. And plus, the other consideration is the spaces that are available at the gas pumps oftentimes serve the parking needs of the people that are running in and doing quick shopping or maybe even grabbing something at the restaurant. So considering those, not knowing who the restaurant operator would be in this case, we would think that several of the spaces could be eliminated and replaced with landscaping.
Okay. And my next question is that first pump, I guess it'd be to the west, the westerly pump. Is that normal to have a pump directly in line with an approach? Is that a concern? I mean, is the canopy in close proximity to an entrance? I just wonder if there was a turnaround vehicle maybe or something that occurs. It's in direct proximity. Is that normal or not?
Yeah, it is not unusual to see the canopies extend in front of the driveways and the pumps extend beyond that radius of the driveway leading in. This one is almost centered in that that westerly driveway along Plymouth Road. That might be a little unusual, but as you drive around and you take a look at these types of dive-in configurations, you'll notice that is a common element of those. Whether or not they extend as far across the approach as this one does, I don't know. I know that many of them do extend partially into the approach.
And I will say that removing that northern approach on Merriman really does help kind of circulation.
Yes.
People don't drive right into the bump. And I think my last question is the dumpster enclosure. It's pretty rough over there right now. That new dumpster enclosure will be the same materials as the new building will be?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it for now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. I got the Vice President, then I'll go to Councilman Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. I did watch the Planning Commission meeting, so I'm familiar with the project, but at the time, at the Planning Commission meeting, there was a back tax issue of about 10 grand. Has there been plans has that been taken care of? Are there plans to take care of that?
I told the owner, I think that there were some taxes that had to be paid and stuff like that, but I never asked him again after that. I can ask him. I'm not sure.
Okay, because that would need to be taken care of. And then as far as the restaurant, and I know Mr. Chairman has said we weren't sure exactly what kind of restaurant necessarily yet, but are you kind of thinking it's going to be a grab-and-go restaurant, or are there going to be places to sit down? I mean, that kind of dictates the parking as well.
So most likely it's going to be like a carry-out restaurant, and most likely it's going to be one of his franchises that he created, the owner. It's called Eureka Deli, but I wasn't sure. Okay. He said not to put it yet until, I think what he looks for is partnerships all the time in these, in the secondary business. I think that's what he was reluctant to put a name, but in most cases, it's going to be a carry-out restaurant. And most people, order before and pick up online and,
so
DoorDash
like a
and stuff like that.
grab-and-go type thing. Yeah. And then the other thing, I know that was a concern from Sergeant Walters, who does our traffic and things, was the ADA parking spaces. There was only one, and the access aisle was not on the passenger side where it needs to be. So I guess that needs to be redesigned. And I think he had requested that there actually be 2 more additional ADA compliant parking spot or handicap parking spaces.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that's reflected in the plans.
I noticed I don't got my my updated plan with me. I got an older version of what we had before we added parking toward the south. We were reluctant, by the way, to add parking. You're talking about a whole sea of asphalt and stuff like that. We were reluctant of designing that extra 30 feet of landscape in the back. He really doesn't want to the owner doesn't really want to maintain that. and he doesn't want to develop it. But if he has to, because he has to move forward somehow with this project now, because he's losing, I guess, just looking at it. Even though he's successful in so many other gas stations and stuff, he has like 20 of them around so many cities. So it's not his first rodeo. He's been developing gas stations like this and running them. So that's one question. If you really are not, if you think that the parking is not as important as you think, then we would hope that maybe you could vote without the parking in the back. As far as the ADA handicap space, I never was questioned on that. I thought we designed it the same way I designed so many other buildings. I usually put the parking vehicle to the right, and so when they open the door, there's a walking space to the left, and that creates also a walking space for other customers that have to use that ramp in that area in order to get to the sidewalk and then to the front entrances of the restaurant or the gas station. But we can take of course, we're going to be taking a look at these again. I wanted to also answer, I didn't get a chance to answer also the pump that's directly in front of the approach. Like it was said, in most dive-in concepts, that's how the gas stations are designed right now. And if you notice that when someone comes eastward into the site, he's directly aligned with the side of that pump if he wanted to go to that first pump. And then the other vehicles would just circle around. That's why we shut the north approach. So I think the circulation compared to all the gas stations that I was involved in, this is, it'll operate normally, without any problems with circulation or anything like that. As far as the landscape, it wasn't brought to my attention that we needed a landscape architect. I know on a previous project it was. I thought for maybe a certain reason, maybe because of the area or stuff like that. We previously designed landscapes, me and my engineer, and in the city of Livonia without a landscape architect. We have no problem of hiring a landscape architect to double check the species and positioning and numbering of any plants or trees, but we really don't want to waste more time going back to the planning commission. We would hope that you could approve it so we could approve it administratively once we turn it in, and I think their staff is, of course, they're knowledgeable, they're very smart people, especially Mark and oh my God, I forgot the other.
Don't
person.
forget Todd.
Yeah.
Scott. That's in that department for years and years.
I'm uncomfortable right now, for the record.
So I'm hoping that we don't have to waste time with that. So with that said, I hope I answered all your questions.
Yeah, and I'm not married to that southern parking area with all the concrete as well, but I am concerned about the back taxes and making sure that we do have the ADA compliant parking spots located. So just if that could be reflected in the next,
I'll
and
make sure
the
he
taxes
does
for
something
sure.
this week with that predicament, if that's still
If
outstanding.
it hasn't been resolved, as of the packet that we got today, it was not resolved. So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
I'll tell him.
Thank you. Councilman Morgan.
Yeah. When you were designing this, did you ever consider maybe moving this building back a little bit? Shaving the front of that off, and since you're already building in the back, because, as I look at these plans here, this 23 feet from the sidewalk to the pumps area, this seems like it's going to be a little tight. I realize it's tight now, but when you add all these spaces in here and put those pumps up front, it seems like it's going to be squeezed in there pretty good. Was there any thought to that? Because in maybe removing the parking spaces in the rear?
The thing is, there's an easement. There used to be maybe a abandoned alley or something. There's an easement back there, which is about 8 feet from the back of the building. We only have 8 more feet in order to play with, and then there's an easement back there, so we can't build on the easement. And we wanted to utilize the existing building, so that, we don't want everything to go to loss. So we were going to use the structure of the existing building, at least 2 sides of it, and then build around it, and then redecorate everything else with regarding the aesthetics of the facades and everything else. So, and he's limited to around 3,000 square feet I think it was, 3,000 square feet. He wants the gas station. That's where as many square feet that he needs in order to fit everything that he needs in that gas station. And then the restaurant around 1,500. I mean, actually between 1,300 to 1,500. I talked him into about 1,500 just to give him some extra space for storage and stuff in the back. But so he has a designated number that he needs in order to operate these businesses. So he doesn't need anything bigger than that, and hopefully not anything smaller than that.
Right, I'm not really suggesting that you make it any smaller, but if the store goes back a little bit, then it gives you more room in the front, and more access. More people can get in there a little bit comfortably, but this, the way it's set up, it just seems like it's kind of a tight area where they're coming in. If there are cars at the pumps, people pulling in that driveway, as Councilman Donovic had indicated, that pump's right in front of there. If you have cars at those pumps, that's going to be a difficult squeeze around, you know. And if I'm actually also wondering, how is your refueler going to get in there? That's going to be, I mean, I see where you put in a loading zone, but how is that semi-tanker going to get in there to refuel these pumps? That's going to be a pretty tight squeeze.
So
I mean, I don't think I could do it.
As far as I know from the owners, he has a secretary also, the tanker comes in from the south approach that we're going to keep open, the southerly approach that we're going to keep open, and then it comes in. The tanks are tucked in right, near the building. If you notice right there where it says concrete pavement, it's dotted all the way around with some circles. So that's where they unfuel, and then they deliver the fuel, and then they come out. They usually come out from the first approach to the west approach. I'm not sure if he's still going to use that as a route, or he's going to circle around and go to the easterly approach. I'm not sure, but how that's going to work out, because he used to come out from the approach to the northerly side, which we're going to close now. That's what he told me. Well, she told me, but the secretary. We're hoping that he's not going to have any problems coming out from the off of Plymouth Road on the westernly approach toward the corner. So that shouldn't be a problem. They said they keep telling me. As far as the parking, I don't have a dimension to really look at it right now, but I knew that there was about at least like 37 feet in order to put a parking. But we had some discussions, and we had some revised plans showing that the parking spaces were not. First, I had parking spaces that were on an angle, so I have a one-way in and one-way out that it's not here right now. And then it was told that through the planner, Jacob, let's try to maybe remove those parking because it was probably getting a little tight in that area. And at one of the plans, which is this plan that I have in front of me right now, doesn't show any parking in front of the building. We like parking in the building so people can just park in, get their necessities, and leave real quick. They kind of like that. But yeah, we took that out at one point, and I can show you this plan that I have with me. But I don't know why. I guess at one point we were speaking and stuff like that. They wanted me to redesign it a third time, and that's what we came up at the end. I don't know what else to say about that. So they liked it, the planning department, and we stuck with it, and I was glad that we went along with that. To tell you the truth.
Okay. Are you good?
Yeah, good. Yeah, thank you.
Councilwoman Toy?
Thank you. To the petitioner, why isn't the petitioner here that's doing this?
The owner?
Yeah, the owner.
Yeah, I was hoping that he can come to one of these meetings. I'm not sure. I can't tell you why he doesn't come with me. I asked him a couple times to come with me to the next meeting.
Okay. I mean, you're doing a great job. It's it's always nice to have somebody that's really involved and paying the bills, if you know what I mean. My colleague that is asking about ADA, the vice president, what occurred to me is after having a disabled brother and dealing with handicapped vans, you also got a backload on some of those vans. And so, you know what I mean, where the ramp comes down, even some cars have those vehicles, you know, to do. And it sounds like, you know, you're doing a little bit more than a gas station pump gas between a major, not major, but a convenience store and a restaurant, which, I don't know, I just can't see eating at a restaurant, but I know a lot of people are. I guess it's pretty common anymore. So I think that ADA parking is the Vice President alluded to, is really important. And regardless of how you drive it or draw it or don't draw it, but it's important.
We can always
I think
add-
to me as well.
Yeah.
Also, sir, if I may, those tables, are those, I think the question was asked by a couple of my colleagues already. Are you going to have tables or not? I mean, we're guessing about, are you going to serve hot dogs or steak or what? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So
You know,
it's kind of hard to judge what we're doing here.
He has a location.
It's incomplete.
Yeah, he has a location in Garden City right on Ford Road in Henry Ruff.
Okay, I was going to ask you that.
Eureka Deli.
Eureka Deli, okay.
Yeah, he has another one in Taylor, but I can't give you the exact location there because I didn't work on that one.
Okay, so Eureka Deli on Ford and what?
Ford Road and Henry Ruff, which is between
Yeah, I know where it's at.
Merriman and
Yeah.
Middle Belt, maybe? Yeah.
Yep. It's by a car dealership over there. Was that a mobile gas station, or is it a mobile gas station still?
I think it's a
Yeah,
Shell.
it's a mobile.
Is it
Mobile, okay. I just wondered, because like you said, it's been there since the 50s, and,
Oh, the mobile that's here, yeah.
Yeah,
The
the
one
one
that's there right now, it is mobile.
okay.
So if he's gonna change it, he's probably gonna change it, man, I can't remember the brands that he had on his
Is it
other
called
gas station.
Sheetz?
Either
No.
Shell or Sunoco.
I'm only joking, I'm only joking.
No, it was Alts.
Sorry, Council, I didn't mean it.
Alts Mobile.
Huh?
It was a mobile.
I know, I was being fun.
I just want to find that
Anyhow,
truck.
Is there anything else you can think? I mean, I'm a little in query about the restaurant. I mean, when we start putting restaurants and gas station.
So what I can say, it's mostly carry out, but
Yeah,
he
I
will,
know.
he will have a couple tables in there.
I know,
I've
but
seen
what
that
kind
there
of
is some
food?
tables.
What kind of food? Is it pizza
The
or
food, he told me,
chicken?
chicken sandwiches and, I don't know, fries and things like that. Or maybe real chicken that he just said chicken, there's chicken, at one time when I asked him. I never really went in there. I
That's
just-
okay. That's what I
Well,
mean. When the petitioner should, I'm sorry.
And right now, if I may, I mean, a lot of these questions, obviously, I'm not speaking for all of council, but I kind of am. We're lacking some information.
Yeah.
This is going to go to the regular, I would assume.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a motion or not.
Both
but
ways.
In the event, I think we need to get a ton of information to get these started.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'm going to make a motion. I'd like to see this item go to the committee of the whole and discuss a little further, give the petitioner some more opportunity. I think there's some questions about ADA accessibility. I think there's some questions about parking, non-parking. I think there's just some more questions. Now, to the petitioner's point, they want to get going on this, and I want to see this redeveloped. But there's just some unknowns here, and you do need to hire a landscape architect. This gives you time to get a landscape architect before the committee of the whole meeting. I think you need to talk to our planning department and maybe look at some of that circulation parking, and I think council's poised to do something. We want to do something. I just think there's some stuff that you need to do first. And I'd hate to see this get denied because you're too hasty.
Right now, we do have a motion for committee of the whole. I'm going to go to Councilwoman Budzinski because she has been patiently waiting. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I mean, the same thing, you mentioned that this property owner has 20 gas stations or restaurants of this nature. I'd really be curious if he has ones that have this similar footprint and kind of how it plays out in practice, because it seems really tight. I live in this area, so I'm very familiar with this gas station. It seems like a lot of stuff in this space. Particularly interesting how the restaurant is standalone. So, in some cases, the restaurant is accessible from inside the convenience gas station area. This looks like from the design that it's separate, which kind of, to me, provides a different space usage that's not just for a car to, put in gas, run in, get energy drinks, lotto tickets, whatever, or grab food real quick. But for people who might want to walk up or bike up and grab a sandwich and come back. And so are there any bike racks
We could provide bike racks. We have room on the eastern side, but it was never brought up for anybody to tell me to put bike racks. It's not, I don't think it's like a rule or code in order to put something like that, unless someone suggests it. So we can always note these things down and just go ahead and.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna suggest it then, so that as it is a standalone restaurant, if somebody wanted to go and get food or even run up and get some convenient items, they'd have a place to park their bicycle as well.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Perfect. So we do have a motion for committee of the whole. More motions could be made at the voting meeting, but that, let me go to council. Council, anything further?
Just real quick.
Yes.
Can you just make sure that the back taxes are taken care of?
That's the first phone call I'm going to make when I get out of here.
Because we kind of dropped that, talking about that, but just, yeah, that's going to be imperative. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Anything else from the audience on this item? Seeing none. So what I would recommend is, right now it's going to committee of the whole. You can provide us the information there. But yeah, there seems to be a lot of questions that we still need to be answered. It looks like a great development. But a lot of this stuff, I think, would be pertinent to be, as Councilman Donovic said, in a committee to study this a little bit further.
So what happens now? I mean, after this, you're going to take me back to the planning
No.
commission?
So basically, on the regular meeting on January 15th, this item will go up for vote. And there could be different motions made at that time. If you want, you can submit new data between that time. There's a motion on the floor right now to send this to committee of the whole, which is a council committee. It's where we take things to further study. So I would probably set that up pretty quick because obviously it's winter time right now. I don't think you're planning on doing any construction, but I'm sure spring's going to be here and you want to potentially break ground. Right. So this is something that we would schedule pretty quick for you. And it would be basically a session maybe with one or two items, and we could specifically talk in detail, instead of having it in a forum, right, in a study meeting. Usually if we kind of get caught up on stuff, that's why we have the committees. So it gives us an opportunity to really dive in to the dumpster, locations, the bike racks.
Dumpster
I
dive?
understand.
Yeah, dumpster diving. So, yes. And then obviously we will, Sarah's not here, but she's our council administrative officer, should we say, for the office, and we'll schedule something and let you guys know.
So it's possible, if we did do something between now and the 15th and provided a plan and everybody was on board with it.
You could have a motion at that
We
time.
can still get this approved on the 15th?
It's very,
That's
No.
unrealistic. There's no proving. No. I don't
so we're
think
going to a committee.
I don't think
That's
so.
the way the vote's going to be. But I would feel free to submit some information as well.
Next week.
Not a
I
problem.
think that's wise.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
okay.
All right.
That's it for now?
Yes, yep, you're good.
All right.
Thanks.
So just get in touch with the planning department again, and they'll tell me what to do next? Okay.
Yep, we'll make sure we get you in the right direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to item number 3. Is a vacating petition, comes to us from the Planning Commission, petition 2024-10-03-02, submitted by Andrea and Benjamin Edwards to determine whether or not to vacate portions of an existing storm drainage easement at 18586 Comstock Avenue. Mr. Tromia?
This is a request to vacate a private easement that affects Lot 239 of the Gold Manor subdivision, number 3. Lot 239 is right at the corner of Comstock Avenue and Jay Avenue. The rear of this property contains a 30-foot wide easement, which is used for storm drainage purposes. This easement runs the full width of the property. The petitioners would like to vacate the south 40 feet of the easement so that they can construct a 200-square-foot shed. Alongside the 30-foot easement, there's a 6-foot wide private easement for other public utilities, and that would not be affected. The engineering division has reviewed this and has no objections to vacating the portion of the easement as identified.
Thank you. And I want to point out that Mr. Edwards, I believe, is here. And after the special meeting, he goes, "Hey, should I hang out?" And I said, "Yes." So he's been here. I want to, listen, I'm not trying to put favoritism, but he's been here a long night, and I'm happy he's here, so he's here to field any questions. Councilman Morgan.
Yeah, this seems pretty reasonable. I'd support this for the regular, so.
Regular or consent?
Yep, offer, yep.
Consent?
Consent, I'm sorry, yes.
Perfect. Council, any objections? You You have an approving on consent, which means if you want to come back the next meeting to hang out with us, feel free, but your matter is all but assured to pass.
Oh, awesome. So I don't have anything with like sheets or anything I need to bring up?
I
Gas
would,
stations?
my recommendations right now, I think I would say, have a great night,
Stay way away from
and thanks for hanging out.
Get out of here as soon as you can.
Good luck finding the paint drain.
Yes. And I'm going to go back to the audience. Any questions on that vacating? Seeing none? All right. Moving on to item number 4 is a site plan petition, comes to us from the Planning Commission. Petition 2024-10-08-08, submitted by Ms. Cadre, requesting approval of all plans to renovate the commercial building and convert into a multi-tenant retail center at 17230 Farmington Road, located on the east side of Farmington Road between 6 Mile and Curtis Roads. Mr. Termina, it's a busy night for the Planning Commission.
Thank you. This petition involves converting a former bank into a multi-tenant retail building. This site is on the east side of Farmington Road. It's just north of Abbey Flooring and Design Center. It was originally developed in the late 1960s as a standard federal and savings and loan. This property is about 34,000 square feet, which is about 0.8 of an acre. The zoning is C1 local business. The site has a driveway onto Farmington Road, but it is also accessible from the north as well as the south via marginal access drives with the adjoining properties. So there's multiple ways of accessing the property. The building department records show that this building has been vacant since 2013. So under new ownership, the plan is to renovate the building as a retail center. This would include removing the drive-through operation at the rear of the building, adding new demising walls to create 4 separate leasable suites, renovating the exterior by adding windows and doors, painting the existing brick on the building a dark gray color, adding an EIFS parapet on the top portion of the building as a sign band, and then adding some gray metal panels above the brick on the sides and rear of the building. And I'll show a rendered elevation plan here in a second. The 4 suites would range in size from 688 square feet to just under 1,600 square feet. There's also a couple small landlord rooms, about 370 square feet. The plans show 4 wall signs of unspecified size, but those will be regulated by the building department. There would be a new monument sign, and that's restricted both in height and area. Parking, there's 27 spaces required by code. This plan shows 51, so more than enough parking. And part of the reason for that is this was developed along with the office building, so this was all part of a larger office complex at one time. Unfortunately, the site does not have any space between the right-of-way and the parking lot for landscaping, but the petitioner is adding landscaping mostly along the south side of the property where there's a strip of grass, but currently no trees or shrubs. And then a new dumpster enclosure is shown in the southeast corner of the property. Planning Commission is recommending approval. The rendering, this is the rendering of the building with the front, the side of the building facing Farmington Road shown here on the bottom, the rear on top, and then the 2 side elevations.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Councilman Toy.
Petitioner here? Is there a
Is
petitioner?
the petitioner? Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. Just name and address just for the record, and then I'm just going to let council.
Scott Munchnick, 5430 Sunnycrest Drive, West Bloomfield, Michigan.
Thank you
Architect.
very much.
If I may.
Yes.
To the petitioner. Sir, I just want to thank you very much for buying this building because it has been said since 2013 it's been vacant and it's become somewhat of an eyesore as you go down Farmington Road, which I do quite frequently. So it sounds like you're going to do an awesome job. Do you have any prospective tenants that are going to be moving in, do you know?
No, not at this time.
So there'll be 4 slots
units.
available for
Correct.
retail, some type of retail?
Yep. Yeah, and we're open if somebody comes in and says, I want, 2 spaces, we're flexible with that, but the goal is 4.
Okay. Do you own any other buildings in
No,
our
this is the
city or
first.
anywhere else?
Nope.
No? Nope, just a new venture?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Okay, well, I'm going to offer an approving if that's okay with everyone, and
You may. Is that
welcome to Livonia, thank you.
consent or regular?
I'm going to do regular at the moment until we hear from our other colleagues.
Sounds good.
Because, yeah.
Let me go to Vice President, and then I'm going to go to Councilman Donovan.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question, I know this was formerly a bank. I just have, out of curiosity, how did you get the vault, or how are you getting the vault out of there?
Yeah, it's
Is
gone.
it
We
gone
had
already?
a demolition crew come in. I don't know how they got it out.
I
It
was just curious.
huge.
Anyway, just, but actually, when I was looking, my real question is, it looks like there's a back water bill for about $460 and some back taxes close to about $8,600.
No, it's all been paid. It's all been paid.
Okay, because in our packet, it was still showing. Okay, that's, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, that was really my only concern. Thank you. And yes, thank you for taking care of this building.
Thank you.
Let me go to Councilwoman Budzinski, I'm sorry, and then I'll go to Councilman Donovan.
Yeah, just out of curiosity on the tenant, so it would only be retail, it wouldn't be like a bakery, it wouldn't be food service? Or you
We're
don't know?
aiming towards retail, but we're open if, someone comes in and says, I want to do this here. But we're aiming for retail, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, just curious, really more
Yeah.
than anything. And then, as I just mentioned earlier about if people wanted to use their bikes to come up there, would you guys be open or able to provide a bike rack somewhere?
If they're coming to give us business, we could maybe put something in. I don't know if we have the space for it or not. Scott, the architect, would have to look at that and let us know. But if it's
Yeah.
possible, I mean,
I just think that it would be helpful. One of the things that I've noticed as a lot of people who are choosing to bike more frequently through the city, once you get somewhere and you have nowhere to put your bike, especially e-bikes, you know that people are becoming increasingly popular. So I think it could be, a good way to attract business as well.
Yeah.
So just a thought. Thank you. And welcome to Livonia.
thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the petitioner for joining us this evening and buying a dilapidated building. And it definitely needs a lot of work, so we're looking forward to seeing some of our blighted vacant buildings redeveloped. Thank you. To the architect, so help me understand, you're adding a parapet wall on top. You're not actually adding a second level, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that's just to block the utilities and whatnot on top?
Right, block the HVAC and plus give more street presence.
Okay, yeah, it definitely gives you more street presence. So you're painting the existing brick. What are you painting it with? Just a traditional paint or?
There's a special brick paint that has a 20 to 40-year lifespan.
Okay, because I asked that question because we'd hate to see you invest so much money and then the paint start chipping away and cracking paint, exactly. So that's going to be stucco ephes on the top, the parapet wall? Or is that metal combination?
The white part is going to be the ephes, and then the sides and back are going to be a metal panel. So
Metal
it'll be a
paneling.
dark gray.
Okay. And then there was a little discussion about the landscaping. I know there's a lot of random aisles, concrete aisles with bollards protecting streetlights. The site plan is kind of small. It doesn't really, it's hard to understand. Are you removing some of these little bollards, these islands? Are you keeping all the existing ones? What's the plan there?
So all of the islands are existing. The parking spaces will be a new stripe. The parking lot will be redone.
Mm-hmm.
But the islands are existing.
Okay. And when you say you're not redoing, you're just, I'm assuming, seal coating the parking lot?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the dumpster enclosure, since it is going to be a new dumpster enclosure, what are you proposing for the material for the dumpster enclosure?
It'll meet the city standards.
So masonry?
Masonry and.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see it masonry, something that mimics the brick that you'll be, that you have of the building. So I'd like to see a masonry wall with of course, the appropriate gate up front. I think that was it. I noticed there's random poles sticking up throughout the site. I think at some point they're probably like signage poles. It's kind of hard to see. You're not going to see them in the renderings or from an aerial, but I know there's random poles sticking up, especially along the sidewalk. I know Councilman Budzinski mentioned bikeability.
I'm not sure. I think that's all been removed if there were some at some time.
I haven't noticed any.
Okay, well, as of 2 months ago, they're still there. Just looking at some GPS imagery. So if you guys could definitely take a look at those, they're just sticking out.
I believe that's already been taken care of.
Great, awesome. I think that is it. And I'm not sure my colleague's position. I think it'd be great if we get this approved on consent. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there any objections to putting that on consent?
Not at all.
None? All right, so right now we have an approve it on consent, which means that your matter is all but it should be approved with no issues on the consent agenda on the 15th.
With those revisions.
With those revisions that we spoke about. If there is any further information that you can think of, please send it in as extra information. You're not required to be here that day. So
Excellent. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to the audience. Does the audience have any questions on this item? See you none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We are moving on to item number 5 is a request to authorize payment to Election Source. This comes to us from the Office of the City Clerk for preparation of test ballots and testing of all election equipment by approved state vendor for the state primary election held November 5th, 2024 from budgeted funds. Madam Clerk.
Yes, thank you, President McCullough. This is something that was similar brought to you following the August primary. Election Source is the sole vendor that we use for preparing all of our test decks and testing all of our equipment prior to each election. This year, because all 44 precincts were opened and we also had early voting, the cost was significantly higher, so the threshold warrants that we come before you to approve the payment. This invoice is for $26,111, and it included all of the testing done by Election Source. They are the sole source in Michigan, and they're approved by Wayne County and Dominion Equipment, which is the equipment that we use here in Livonia.
Thank you. Council?
Approve.
Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have to pay the bill, so I'll offer approving on consent.
We've approved on consent. Anything further from council? Anything from the audience? All right. You have to come back and hang out with us. Sorry.
I will be here.
Item number 6 is an acceptance of donations. This comes to us from the Livonia Public Library in reference to cash and gifts from various contributors to be used for purposes as designated by donors. Oh, Sedson's coming up. These are always fun. I don't know. I don't want to be impartial, but I think we're always good with accepting donations.
I was going to say, I'm like, do you really need me? It's pretty
It
straightforward.
was in the packet. I'm going to, Councilwoman Budzinski.
Yeah, well, I just note that the Friends of the Library donated a significant amount. It looks like, what, a little over $50,000. And the volunteers for the Friends of the Library work so hard. The book sales one that's coming up February 7th, 8th, 9th, possibly.
Yes, it is the second weekend in February.
Yes, so if you need to stock up on books, just something to note for your calendar. But did you guys have, I know it's generally a sizable portion of the city or the library's budget plans is what the Friends of the Library is able to contribute. So I thought you just could talk about the Friends and how good they are to us, and if you guys had specific designated goals for how those funds would be used.
The funds are always used either to support, like I said in the letter, either programming for children's teams and adults, specifically the summer reading program. And then it just kind of supplements a bit our budget to purchase physical materials. And then they offer the opportunity for our employees to have a scholarship if they are choosing to go to school. We're working on opening that up to just more than to library school, but if you are, working on your bachelor's degree, because a master's is required for library science. So they do a scholarship. They maintain our fish tank on a monthly basis, which the kids obviously love coming in there and waving hi to the fish. They also supported the refreshments for our staff training day in October. So they really are, as you said, a great resource. Every month they probably bring in about $2,000 through the bookstore. The book sales are usually between $10,000 and $20,000, with October being their largest book sale. But this is also about all of the donations that we receive in memorial or commemoration of someone who has either passed or just a celebration. So the Detroit Story League, they gave us a $500 donation, and most of these do go to a specific type of material that they would like to see us have in the collection, either a subject matter or just like an audience, like kids' books, whatever you guys feel the need to purchase. So it is nice to have that extra money to put back into our collection. And then, of course, the Friends are willing to support us in other needs that we might have throughout the year that may pop up. So they are a great asset.
Awesome. Good.
Or actually, I want us to accept the donation, so on consent, if there's no
Perfect.
objection.
So we have an approving on consent. Councilman Donovan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. Thank you, Director Edson, for being here tonight. It is important that you're here and we accept these gifts. We're very fortunate to get a lot of different organizations and people that donate to the city. And I know Mr. Davis, Director Davis has been here a lot for accepting the grants and various gifts. And it is our job. So appreciate all the hard work your department's doing and your librarians are doing and our library system's doing. This is pretty exciting stuff. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. President.
Awesome. So we have an approving on consent. Anything else from council? Anything from the audience?
All right.
I think we're going to want to accept these. No, great job doing this.
Thank you.
All right. Again, the next 3 items have been removed. We're going to jump right to item number 10. Is a request for authorization to advance funds from the Newburgh and Silver Village unexpected fund balance to the Newburgh Village 2 operating fund. Comes to us from the Housing Commission. The Newburgh Village expansion project site preparation and clearance in a combined amount of $500,000 to be repaid through the insurance of bonds. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Floor's yours.
The city of Livonia owns approximately 9.5 acres adjacent to our existing Newburgh Village facility. This was acquired many, many years ago, and has always been the intent of the Housing Commission to expand affordable housing for seniors. So we are going to begin to undertake this project. We've already completed a site survey for the project, a topographical survey, so we know our lot lines, we know the elevations of the property, and we've begun to work on the site plan for that particular expansion of that development. I will tell you now, it's not going to be called Newburgh Village 2. We don't know what it's going to be called at this point. We're thinking of doing a little survey with the residents to see if they can come up with a new name for it. But at this point, it's going to be called Newburgh Village Expansion or Newburgh Village 2. This would be a new fund created. It'd be fund number 537. Currently, funds 536 and 538 are the Silver Village and Newburgh Village funds. They do have an unexpended fund balance. They both have a very healthy unexpended fund balance, and we're seeking an advance of $500,000 to do some pre-development activities. That would be site clearance, signage, fencing, begin to hire the architect for the process for the property, also looking at signage and also site fencing, as I said, and also some legal and bond counsel costs. So this would create a new fund. This $500,000 again would be an advance, and it would be repaid to both the Silver Village and the Newburgh Village Fund when the bond proceeds in the future when we go for development of the property.
Thank you. Councilman Toy, Councilman Donovan, after that.
Thank you. If I may to Jim. Jim, thank you very much for doing this project. When I first got back on council, we started looking at that site. It just made perfect sense with the influx of all the seniors, that are going to be part of this community and are part of this community. Just not enough housing, as you're probably very aware of. The little snag we ran into was some of the property owners that abut that site. Are we still having any kinds of issues? I know there's quite a bit of property back there behind, but I think we were going to expand it more, and I know one of the property owners wanted to put a high-rise back there at one point. So maybe that doesn't enter into this at all. I don't know if you ran into that at all as you're exploring this or doing this, but I commend you for doing it. Thank you.
Yes, when we did a topographical survey, we do have some owners on Plymouth Road that are encroaching on our property a little bit, so that's not a problem. We can get them to back off.
Right.
Also, there's an owner that was considering providing to us some access or egress to our property out to Jug Handle Road on Plymouth Road.
Right.
But we believe that we can handle egress off of Newburgh Road with no problem.
And how many units would we be putting in, sir?
Approximately 100.
100, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Newburgh, the existing village has 120.
Yeah.
But the Housing Commission has discussed a lot about marketing.
Awesome.
We believe that 2 bedrooms are much more marketable than the 1 bedrooms, so we're going to kind of change it a little bit. So we've learned a lot from Silver Village, learned a lot from Newburgh Village, so we're going to reduce the density a little bit to probably 100 units.
And how large will those be?
Approximately 750 to 800 square feet.
Okay, and they'll be with showers, right? They're not gonna have tubs in them and things like that we learned years back?
Yes, council
Okay.
member.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Alrighty, no problem. Okay, some of those things you remember, now that I'm getting old, you don't remember, but thank you very much, Jim.
All right, Councilman Donovic, then I'll go to Councilwoman Budzinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Ingles, thanks for being here this evening. Appreciate it. When we talk about this site, I'm excited for it. I know you've been working really hard. You and your team have been working really hard over the years now on this project. Maybe this is a question for Mr. Tormina or you. What is the zoning site plan process logistically moving forward? I know we own it. It's the Livonia Housing Commission. I'm a little unsure. Does the commission approve site plan? Does the city council approve site plan? What does this process look like moving forward?
In this case, it'll go through, I believe, the normal site plan review process due to the zoning, because I think it's NM3, I believe.
And I asked that question, but because it says the Housing Commission has rezoned the 9.5 acres. And I know maybe there's some background history there and whatnot, but I want to make sure we're on the up and up here.
Yeah, it was originally zoned RUF, I believe, when the city acquired it. So I would say probably 10, 15 years ago, we went to the Planning Commission. The zoning classification at that time was R9, Housing for the Elderly, which with the zoning changed it. So Mr. Tormina is correct. It now has a new zoning classification, but it still permits housing for the elderly.
So presumably speaking, we can avoid rezoning, but still go to the site plan.
Yeah, no, the housing project, it'll be treated as a permitted use, but it'll have to go through the normal
Traditional
site
site
plan
plan.
review process.
Okay, traditional site plan. Okay, and then we talk about funding. So we're just, are you asking us to blatantly approve $500,000 in expenditures, or just approve 500 and then come back to us for the traditional thresholds of spending, or?
The latter.
Okay. I think this is a great idea. I think you and your team work hard on this. Everything checks out. I'm happy with it as one member, so I'd like to offer approving on consent if there's no objection from my colleagues, Mr. President.
Sounds good. I'll go to Councilwoman Budzinski.
Yeah, no objections. Just didn't know if you guys had any kind of timelines, about when you're hoping to hire the architect, break ground, things of that nature.
This spring, we will be breaking ground.
Oh, exciting. When would you think you'd be opening? I mean, just out of curiosity for the folks who are looking to downsize their homes and want to start, get in early on the new housing.
The next item on the agenda is actually starting the bonding process. So that would be a major consideration, is going to the bond market and beginning to borrow the money, getting the architect on board to actually place the units on the site, and working with our engineering department and planning department. But I would imagine once we issue the bonds and we'll come back to council with the construction contracts and everything, it would probably take 12 to 18 months to build it. It's all slab on grade, so it's not any basements or anything like that. It's going to be very similar construction to Newburgh Village, but codes have changed since Newburgh Village was built back in 1992. So it's going to be a little bit different process for us.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Mr. Chair, if I may ask, I'm sorry.
Councilman Toy.
If I may ask Jim, Jim, how do we determine who gets into these 100 units? You know what I'm saying? I know it's by what they make, correct?
She's asking for herself.
Well, I could be.
I'm also a client.
It's not far
I'm the
behind me.
president of the.
Anyhow, he's so bad. Little does he know he's having room too. Anyhow, I'm sorry. Could you help me understand that? Because I know a lot of people will call you and say, I really need senior housing. Help me out. And,
Sure.
what do you do? Yeah.
Yeah, the admissions and continued occupancy policy for the current villages that we have is 62 years of age, unless you're handicapped or disabled, down to 55 years of age. You must be a Livonia resident.
Yes.
And so those are the criteria.
No income kind of
Oh, yes,
criteria?
and you must be under 80% of area median income, as published by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So we classify it as affordable low-income housing.
Okay.
So we want to reach the seniors that really need the affordability piece
Right.
versus just anyone.
Perfect.
But again, this is controlled by the city, there's no federal funds.
Right.
So, the emission standards are all determined by the city. This will be the third time the city has done this, which is remarkable. There's no
Yes,
other city in
yes.
the state of Michigan that's done
Yeah.
this project 3 times.
That's awesome. Great, great. Congratulations to you and your team. Thanks.
All right. Anything further from council? So we've been approving on consent. Anything from the audience? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 11, which is request to approve notice of intent resolution to issue general obligation bonds not to exceed $10 million and declaring intent to reimburse. This comes to us Housing Commission. The floor is yours again. You kind of gave a segue into it, but if you want to take it further, please do.
Thank you. Our finance director is with us tonight, so I've been working with her. I want to thank her very much for all of her guidance and assistance in working with Miller Canfield, our bond counsel, in terms of beginning the process of bonding. There's 2 resolutions with you tonight. One is a resolution by City Council authorizing us to move forward with issuance of a resolution to support this project. The Housing Commission did adopt its own resolution, 6124, which says that we are asking the City of Livonia to assist us in the financing of the project, which will be done with general obligation bonds. The other resolution you have is Exhibit A, which is a notice to taxpayers of our intent to issue bonds for general obligation bonds. That notice is required that the citizens be notified for a 45-day period that we are intent to borrow up to, not to exceed $10 million. It probably will come in less than that, but again, we want to give ourselves some wiggle room. So we maximize that at $10 million. And so the residents of the community have the ability to issue their support or their concern regarding this. But this is a requirement of state law to issue general obligation bonds in the state of Michigan.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to offer an approving them both. I appreciate our finance director and her wisdom and helpfulness on this. It's an important thing that we're doing here, and it's very exciting. I mean, like you said, we're a leader on this. We really are. And so we need to toot our horn and get this rocket and rolling pretty quick here.
There we go.
So, yeah.
Councilman Donovan?
Consent, if we got it.
All right.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know, because you mentioned there's 2, I don't have the attorney notes this evening, but there are 2 resolutions. Can you circle back on both resolutions that we would need to do
I believe
tonight?
attached to the submission to council is the first one that says resolution authorizing notice of interest and declaring a notice of intent to reimburse. And remember, as I mentioned in the previous one, that you're advancing us $500,000, we're going to repay
some of the bond.
Correct. So that's the resolution by City Council authorizing us to move forward. And then there's Exhibit A that is in that same packet, which is actually the notice to the taxpayers and electors, which was drafted by Miller Canfield. That's actually going to be published in Legal News, so that we fulfill the state of Michigan requirements.
This is a 45-day notice of intent period.
Yes,
where
sir.
residents have the right to essentially, argue against this.
Yes, sir.
And we are ratifying that requirement, and then we can move forward.
Correct.
Will council be taking an additional vote to approve the bond after this then? After that 45-day period is approved? I'm getting a heads up nod from behind you.
Yes.
Okay, so tonight, this evening, so we're on the same page, we're voting to approve the bond notice of intent to spend up to $10 million. Doesn't necessarily mean when it comes time for the bonding vote, we will be asking for $10 million.
Correct.
Okay. And it's still too early to know.
Or an amount up to.
Up to,
Not
yeah.
to exceed.
Yeah, and it's still too early to know what those bond markets will look like. When do you anticipate you'll be coming back for the actual bond vote?
So we have a time frame of probably doing that in March. We'll be probably, so that fulfilling the 45-day comment period, and then begin to work with bond counsel to actually put together the notice of intent, and then start looking at the rates, doing different pro formas based on interest rates and the amount that we're going to be borrowing, run different numbers, and so that will all probably be done in March and April.
Great, and I asked that because, as we all know, there's another bond vote coming up later this year, so trying to figure out timing and how often we're voting on bonds, because it is a big deal. We're essentially, for the residents watching, we're going out for essentially a mortgage is a fancy word for, bond is a fancy word for mortgages, and it's what a municipality does when they want to borrow money, essentially. So we're going through the legal process that we need to do for you, the resident, to know that we are seeking to borrow up to $10 million to build a building, as opposed to doing a tax increase. We can pay for this mortgage payment through our general fund, essentially. So I think it's a great idea, Director. I'm looking forward to it.
And just to clarify, there will not be any general fund money, absolutely, on this project at all. So in Silver Village, Newburgh Village, are all self-supporting. So
Self-sufficient,
revenue from the rents will support principal and interest on the debt, all operations, and a replacement reserve.
I was testing you. You passed.
Awesome. Anything else from council? So that's an approving on consent?
Yep.
All right. Anything from the audience? Seeing none. Thank you very much for all the hard work.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And then once spring hits, get those buckets in the ground. All right. Number 12 is an award of bid, comes to us from the Department of Parks and Recreation for the replacement of Newburgh Church roof at Greenmead Historical Park from budgeted funds. I hope Mr. Ted Davis, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, might be here.
Hi, Ted Davis, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation.
I've always wanted to do it. I'm sorry.
It's all right. You just threw me off right there.
I just wanted to steal your thunder.
Just threw me off. Thank you, Council President McCullough. We are asking for council to waive the sealed bid process, as we went through a bid process on Mitten and we received 2 proposals. Out of that, we had a quote for a lower amount. We're asking council to award that to Cedar Preservation Systems in the amount of $47,350. And this is for the replacement of the church roof. I'm happy to answer any questions council might have on this.
Councilman Morgan?
Yeah, I'd be happy to offer an approval on consent.
Okay, we have an approving on consent.
Mr. President.
Councilman Donovan.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Davis, thanks for being here, Director. Question, I know we had some conversation about replacing roofs in years past at Greenmead. Is this going to be this composite material? Is this going to be actual cedar material?
This is a cedar. So we have done one composite roof, and that was at the Alexander Blue House. That was not an original building. That was a reproduction, and there was some renovations done to that. Also, when we had done cedar previously, it had failed at that roof. This roof's over 30 years old. Cedar's held up well. We're asking for a replacement in-kind material.
Okay. And I know you talked about you wanted to waive the bid process. Are you happy? I know there's some rather large numbers between the two. Are you happy with this company? You think they're going to do a good job?
Yeah, they've done work for us in the past. We can't convince them quite yet to use Mitten, unfortunately. So they're sending us in proposals outside of that process, and they're always the lowest proposal.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And they've done good work for us?
They have in the past, yes.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Anything else from council? Anything from the audience? All right. We have that approval. That was on consent.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 13. Board of bid comes to us from the Department of Parks and Recreation in reference to an accessible playground addition at the Kursky Recreation Center from budgeted funds. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Ted Davis, again, representing Parks and Recreation. We're asking council to award a bid to, I can't even read my own writing here, I need glasses, unfortunately. Park Vision, in the amount of $499,168.20. We initially requested proposals at a cap of $400,000. We had selected Park Vision from their initial proposal. They had some different play components that we liked, and we wanted to add those in, along with benching and perimeter fencing, to secure the area a little better, especially because of its proximity to the circle at the rec center. So we thought that would, we just wanted to make it as safe as we possibly could. So we had increased the proposal amount to the $499,000. Council can see, I believe, the different components we have here in the proposal, and then an overhead layout. I'm still waiting on actual renderings of the playground. They've been a little slow on that, but this project was previously approved with Wayne County grant funds, so I'm happy to answer any questions council might have on this.
Thank you. Councilwoman Budzinski.
New playground's always fun.
Yes.
I like that it's high because I know the kids are going to miss running up that hill.
This will be higher than the hill.
It looked really high. I was very impressed at the thoughtfulness. Kids will notice and appreciate.
There's perceived risk here.
I was going to say,
Perceived.
parents, on the other hand, are going to have a hard time getting their kids out of the rec center now. Even a harder time getting their kids out of the rec center.
Well, you'll be out of the rec center, but you're not going to make it to your
I
car.
can get to the parking lot.
Yes.
I know. I'll send them back to you, Ted, is what I'm telling you. Be prepared. And it really, I know we talked, well, I guess I wasn't here. I maybe was in the audience. But I remember the conversation about the boulders. And I did the LPD, do they feel like they're sufficient? I see the 3. Do we, there's still maybe a little, and it's just a overly concerned parent over here. And just, did public safety happen to look at it and feel like, from their perspective, that it's sufficient and that we don't need a 4th there?
Public safety has not looked at it, and I will say there is, from the edge of the playground to the edge of the traffic circle, there's over 20 feet there. So it's not, you're looking at an aerial and it's on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper or on your screen. It looks really close, and it is, but there is significant, that was why we placed those benches there to act as a buffer.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as clear a shot. We're also going to put fencing on what really is the south side of that area. On the other side of the pathway, there'll be some fencing there to, again, try to keep them in so they don't make the run to the parking lot as well. The funny thing is I knew this question was going to come up, and I honestly look the other day and I see kids running up and down the hill all the time.
True.
There's no boulders, there's no benches, there's no fencing, and yet we seem to be okay with that. And they do run up and down it all the time.
And roll, I believe, again, I'm well acquainted with this.
Yes.
I do know, but as a concerned millennial parent, I have to ask about safety risks. I'm sure Rob will appreciate that. But I still think it's a great plan. I think our families will love it. I love that, anyone can come and use it, and hopefully it'll increase attractiveness to joining the recreation center. So I'd love to put it approving on consent if there's no objection from my colleagues.
Councilman Donovic.
I'll just notice, I think you're taking away Mr. Tormina's hill. I see him running up and down it sometimes.
There's still one in the north side that he can train on.
He does the whole Rocky thing when he gets to the top. He puts his arms
He
up in the
can
air.
still do that. He'll just be facing 5 Mile now.
Oh, boy.
Even more exposure for our planning director.
That's so great. All right. Anything further from council? Anything from the audience? Just kick him out of the way. Not really, yes.
Please.
I'll just ask you, Cindy Fleming, I'm speaking as a former Livonia Head Start preschool director and disability specialist. So when you say ADA and elevation, I was not privy to these plans. I just have questions about angles and slope and accessibility for people who are children trying to go play, and possibly disabled parents trying to monitor.
So I will say, every structure we have is ADA compliant, and what makes it ADA compliant is the material we use for the surfacing, and also the fact of a transfer station and the height of individual steps and locations. So those make it ADA compliant. This structure is ADA compliant. Actually, this is even more so, we're turfing this area. This will be fully
My concern
turfed.
is to get to the equipment.
Yes, they're
So
all
it's
turf.
It's the slope and the angle. If you're at
It
an
is
elevation.
a zero angle. There's 0% grade change. It is flat.
Okay, it was discussed that it was risky.
There's one component that has significant height to it, but again, it has a transfer station and it is accessible to go up it.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
every play component is ADA compliant.
And it's good for adults too, so that's cool.
It's good for
adults?
It could be.
Okay.
Not with hockey sticks though, Council
enough.
President. We're gonna,
I'll go to Councilwoman Budzinski and then Vice President.
Yeah, I just wanted to note for people who are curious about what the new design is, that if you go to the city council page and look at our meeting agendas, we have complete access, or anyone has access to the agenda and supporting materials that we have. So you can check out the pictures of what the playground equipment would look like.
Okay. Vice President?
Thank you. I just kind of want to answer Cindy's questions that she had for Mr. Davis. We're hitting not only the ADA minimums when I look at this, but we're actually going beyond with our accessibility, which is going to, I think, allow us for more innovation and flexibility when I was looking into this project. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Davis for that as well.
Thank you.
Anything else from council? Seeing none, we do have an approving on consent, I believe. Anything else from the audience? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item 14. Is an award of bid comes to us from the Department of Parks and Recreation in reference to the Rotary Park tennis court resurfacing from budgeted funds. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Council President. Again, Ted Davis representing Parks and Recreation. We went out for bid to seal cracks, repair cracks, and resurface the Rotary Park tennis courts. This project was initially done in 2019. It was a complete reconstruction. Every 5 to 7 years, you are supposed to go back and simply repair cracks, fill them with sand, they do like, it looks like duct tape over the cracks, and then they completely recoat the surface. And all you're doing is ensure that we have a smooth playing surface, and it actually lengthens the lifespan of the courts itself. We went out to bid for this project. We're asking that council award to the low bidder, Laser Sports Surfacing, in the amount of $69,900. I'm happy to answer any questions council might have.
Councilwoman Budzinski.
Yes, I think it's great for Rotary Park and our tennis users. So I'd like to offer an approving on consent. If there's no objection from my colleagues, I'd also like to keep Mr. Davis there if there's no objections. I'm glad that Rotary is being invested in. I know we get a lot of questions, and since we do have you, if you might be willing to just offer an update on the pavilion.
Yeah, absolutely. As council knows, we've had a lengthy back and forth process with our insurance provider. That was finally settled mid to late November. We awarded architectural services to HRC, Hubbell, Roth & Clark, from the city's QBS architectural firms. We had a kickoff meeting on November 20th. Walk through the site. I'm expecting to have a follow-up meeting here in the next week or so. There was some homework on both sides, and that's where we're kind of at this point. I would hope that we would have design done by sometime before the end of March, and we're going out to bid at that point, and then back before council here, let's say May would be realistic, and council approves, move forward. I would think we could make a fall reopening of that pavilion, of Pavilion 1 and Pavilion 2.
Will you be demoing the current structure, and what's its current state? I see a lot of things. I haven't driven by it myself personally in recent weeks. Is the collapsed roof still collapsed?
It hasn't been repaired, no.
Well, has it been removed? Are there plans to remove the damaged part, or is that?
Right now, the plans would be when we have construction documents, we would ask for demolition.
Okay. Good, thank you. And I know I've mentioned this to you before personally, but once you have the architectural designs, I think it'll be great so we can display them so folks can know what they can look forward to. And then just again, since I have you there, we can talk about another staple park here in Livonia. Is there anything you can share about Sheldon Park, or when information might come to council about things that have been discussed at the Parks and Recreation Commission?
I have no timeline on when things are going to come before City Council with regards to Sheldon Park. A proposed design was shared, and that proposed design, a 50,000 foot high view of a layout, without even renderings at this point, or any choices as to, playground manufacturers or anything else. A very general layout was proposed. It was approved in principle or in concept by the Parks and Recreation Commission. There's no funding mechanism in place for that, but we have been, working with landscape architects and designers on that site to further refine and develop plans. That is it right now.
Do you have an ideal timeline for when action might be taken on Sheldon Park generally? Is it a expected project for this year? Is it something you're hoping to get in the budget for this year to be worked on next year? Is it one of our longer capital project timelines?
Well, when you say ideal and do my response, semi-sarcastic, would be 2 years ago. You know, I would have preferred this project be done a long time ago. I think Sheldon has been in our master plan for quite some time, and we know it needs some work. I don't have a better timeline right now about when. I think, you know, one is continue to refine plans, and then, you know, look for options for funding, whether that's granting or whether that's through other means. I think that would be our next step.
Hypothetically, how much would you estimate that, how much money would you have range-wise for reinvestment in Sheldon Park?
How much would we need for that plan?
Yeah, range.
$5 million.
And so, knowing our city budget, did we build out the new park signage in-house? I know we do have a sign department, or did we bid out and have a
We
contract?
bid that out. That was awarded by city council.
And I know that there are a couple of parks that didn't get signs, not just Sheldon Park.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a possibility that the parks that have not gotten signs could get new signs? I understand that.
We have no budgeted money for those signs, as you know from the city budget.
Okay. That'll be my questions for tonight.
Okay.
All right. Anything else from council? I just wanted to, not to belabor this, but is there been any thought to just having a demo crew come out and clear that area? I'll be completely honest, that's, I think, the sticking point. And you hear it, we hear it, and, you know, you can get a demo company out there, have the state do a permit, and it's just down.
I think the biggest issue we had was defining the scope, right? And
Yeah.
then working with the insurance company on what they were going to cover. And again, there was a great deal of back and forth. So really until, let's say 6 weeks ago, we had to keep that structure exactly as it was.
Absolutely.
And then we've had, obviously, the holidays. Could we? Yes. It would have cost us more. Absolutely.
But
and again, I'd still have to write a spec, put it out to bid, come back before city council if we were going to do that externally, right? So doing that, it would be another 6 weeks at least. By that point, we're nearing the timeline of bids are going out for this project anyway.
But aren't we talking May, right?
Yeah, probably. We'd be talking April, May at this point, or we'd be talking April realistically to demo it.
So you're going to package this in the RFP for the
Yes.
design.
Yep.
You don't think we could get more competitive numbers if we do an RFP right to demolition contractors?
I mean, it's always, in my experience, it's been cheaper when you package as many things together.
Oh, for sure. No, trust me, I get that.
You're going to spend more, but it's certainly something we can do, we can look at.
Oh, we got more. Oh, yes. Let me go to back.
You go to him.
No, that was it. I mean, obviously, you know.
It's not the way I want it to look either.
Sure. Oh, no, and absolutely. That's why I'm just saying.
And I can tell you when a new pavilion's put there, guess what won't be within 50 feet of it? A tree.
It's a great
We're not
question.
going to do this again. My goal is to not do this project again.
No, go. You got
Well,
it. Councilwoman Budzinski.
I was going to circle back. Could you explain to me why Sheldon Park didn't get a sign if we don't have an immediate plan for park updates? And we ordered sign for all of our other staple parks in the community? Like, was there a rationale behind not ordering? I understand there's a dream, but since there's no timeline for said
Well,
dream.
because we were developing a plan for Sheldon. And we didn't want to spend
How much are
$15,000 on a sign for it to be the incorrect location and have to be moved and spend more money on it. It just didn't make sense to us.
So a singular sign is $15,000?
For the monument signs, yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Councilman
Mr. President. And I too, I mean, we've been talking a lot about signage at Noble and now the Sheldon Park area. I'd love nothing more than to see one of those nice blue signs out there as well. But to your point, Mr. Davis, we're still in the planning process, and there's a process there. And I trust your department will follow that process. And when that park is redeveloped, I'd hate to spend money on a sign just to rip it down eventually and relocate it. I mean, who knows what the future of that site looks like. So looking forward to some signage there. And I think, just to reiterate that we're talking about signs, I hope that multiple council members have asked the signage to be addressed at Noble. There should no longer be a Noble Library sign at the building because it's no longer a library, and there shouldn't be closed signage all over it. It kind of breeds that blighted look to it. I know you're not the appropriate person necessarily for that, but since you're here, you're gonna get it. And when we talk about the frustrating process of insurance companies and attorneys, I remember myself and the council president a few years ago visited a burned down building in Livonia.
No offense, Carter.
None taken for him. I'll answer for him. I remember the council president and I were working really hard on trying to get a blighted building knocked down that was privately owned, and we ran in roadblock after roadblock trying to get that thing torn down, and that was a private matter, but it was an issue for the community, and the insurance companies dictate the speed, and then if there's discrepancies between, the cause, I mean, it's a long process, so it's the residents that are frustrated about it. I am too, but we can't do anything about it until they essentially release the scene. And then, of course, you got to go through the typical process of getting appropriations from council and budgets and planning and all that. So looking forward to it coming down. Thanks for the work your department's doing.
So am I. Looking forward to it going back up.
We do have a motion on this, right?
Yeah, we started, it was actually about the tennis courts.
Good call. So we have a motion that's on consent. Anything further from council? No? Okay, great. Anything from the audience? No? All right, Laura, take us out. What do you want to say?
Motion to adjourn.
Good evening, Livonia. Good morning.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You sure you like it?
Quiet.